Hey, legends, welcome back to the Mason Cox Show Vacation Edition. Yes, we're going to talk about some off-season travels. We're also going to recap some off-season travels that other people may have stuffed up in the past. Plus, we'll cover the footy and much, much more on this episode. So stay tuned in, legends. It's going to be a good one. All right, legends, let's get straight into it. It is the vacation or holiday edition of the Mason Cox Show. Now, I'm overseas, and it's the technical off-season, unfortunately for me. But without further ado, welcome Brayden Cox.
Oh, g'day, Mace. It's always good to see that you're alive. I get sweaty when these players go overseas because I never know what shenanigans you get up to. So I thought I'd ease my mind and go on the internet and just find out that I was hoping to find that players don't actually get into a lot of mischief overseas, but I actually uncovered a whole heap of stories that begs to differ. And so I'm pretty sure we were leaning to not doing any more podcasts for the year, but I did want to tune in. I did want to get on a call just to see your face. There's a lot riding on these trips, Mace. We need you to come back so we can keep going on with this podcast, but I just wanted to tune in. So it's good to see you alive. I haven't heard anything from you, so I want to know where you are, what you're doing, what you've been doing, and how your welfare is.
Welfare is great. Currently sailing Croatia in the middle of the Mediterranean. Can't complain. And I'm on a boat. I think the lonely boys, I'm on a boat. You know what I mean? I think that's my lifestyle at the moment. Saw some dolphins this morning, which was beautiful. And life isn't too bad, but I'm still paying attention to a bit of the football, and I'm hoping not to be one of those stories that I'm sure you've got plenty of negative news that have happened in the past of different football players.
Yeah, no. Is that a jacuzzi you're sitting in front of?
That's a very great observation, Brayden. It is a jacuzzi, or a hot tub, as I like to call it. A hot tub on top of the top deck, or the sun deck of this yacht that I'm on at the moment.
So what's the temperature like there? What are we talking?
Oh, man, it is a brisk probably 25, 26 maybe right now. It is 8 a.m. or 8:30 in the morning, so still the sun hasn't come out, but I might be coming back a little darker than I came here.
We haven't seen a lick of sunlight here. Like I was pale before. I'm turning translucent. I'm whiter than an A4 sheet of paper. You know what's great? Wind. And we are getting a lot of it. Wind is just the best, especially when you match that up with rain and cold. That's the trio that we're talking about. So that's great. It's good to hear that you're miserable over there in front of your
very jealous.
hot tub. So how did you want to structure this? So you have seen a bit of footy. Did you want to lightly dip into the footy? And then I want to bring up some of these stories because I just want to have them in front of mind when you're traveling the rest of your jaunt around the world. I want to have them in front of mind so you can go, you know what, maybe I shouldn't, do the worm on top of a taxi in Hong Kong or anything alike.
Well, Brayden, I've got a great story I'm going to tell you before we get into it, though. We'll talk about the football over the weekend because I'm pretty sure that every single team that we picked to win got spanked over the weekend or had a dramatic loss. So
it was grim.
I think we need to probably redeem ourselves of our football knowledge before we get into some of these stories. Now, I'll let you kick us off. That Geelong game. Oh my gosh, what in the world is going on?
I don't know. We really backed in. We really backed in Kenny Hinkley. We backed him in hard, and obviously it's not the coach out there doing most of the stuff. Zach Butters getting injured didn't really help. But outside of maybe Horn Francis and, I don't know, Ollie Wines, or like there wasn't much, of a fight back, which is just damning to say. There's not much of a fight back from Port. They just got obliterated. 84 points at home. That's got to do some lasting, scarring damage, doesn't it, heading into next week this week where they have to go again.
Do we think they're out in straight sets again? I mean, all my confidence I had of Port Adelaide is essentially going out the window, and I have no idea if they're even going to win this next game. I really am at 50-50 on the possibility. Like I was gung-ho, grand final team, no doubt whatsoever. And now I feel like I couldn't be more on the opposite end of the spectrum now.
Now they're coming up against the Hawks, who, had a pretty convincing win, 37-point victors over the Bulldogs, which the Bulldogs were, these two teams were in almost equal run of hot form. And the Hawks went in there and, did scary things. Interesting move. I'm not sure if you saw it, but Bont didn't do a hell of a lot in the first half. So they moved him forward where the ball wasn't going. So then obviously he didn't get much of the ball in the third. And then when they were 6 goals down, they put the Bont back in the middle. He had 9 touches, kicked a goal. Probably should have had 2 if Norton didn't touch it on the Western Bulldogs goal line, which is probably not what you want. So the Hawks going up against Port, and they're actually the favourites, Hawks, at a Port home game, which is, I don't even know. That's pretty hard to believe.
Who would have guessed that? It was, that Bulldogs-Hawks game as well. I did love a little shout-out to the Wizard. I love whenever he put on the Wizard hat after the game. That was absolute gold. I do enjoy what Hawthorn's doing at the moment with all their social media and their kind of just the youth that they have there. It is good fun. I think everyone has a smile on their face seeing people enjoying their football like that. And, I wasn't predicting them to take the line like that and be able to punish them like they did. But you look at that Hawthorn versus Port game, it's like, I understand why they're favorites, to be honest. Like, I can't imagine that you talk about momentum this time of year, and Port Adelaide just got absolutely stopped with their momentum, and the Hawks just continued theirs. So it's going to be tough to not choose Hawthorn in that game, even though it is a Port Adelaide home game. And I hate to say it, but my boys, Port Power, are about to lose 2 in a row, I think, in finals.
I don't want it. I don't want it for Kenny because we've backed him in this whole time, but I genuinely fear what happens after a straight set's loss. So I'm hoping it's a bit of overreaction. Now, we normally see these in finals where the 2 teams vying for a prelim spot, there's obviously got to be 2 losers. And then when they lose, it's like, doom and gloom, we think they suck, all this stuff. But then they've got into the top 4 for a reason. They normally come out the next week and get the job done. But I don't know. We're seeing against the Mighty Hawks, and I saw stats, and it's like since round 8, they're number 1 for scores, 4, number 1 for defense, number 1 from like stoppage goals, number 1 for it's like, calm down. I don't know. Oh my God, they're like a superpower of a team, and maybe it just took them that long to get into it. Round 8, but it's all turned around for them. I do have to ask, you're on the other side of the planet Earth now. Outside of this Melbourne bubble that I live in, did you hear about Jack Ginnivan having a water at the London Tavern?
Wild. Absolutely wild. He is a unique human, isn't he? And you can see in the photo that went public, like he locked eyes with the person that was taking the photo, and he's probably gone, shit. He's probably gone, oh no.
What the hell?
I just realized that I don't know what just happened there with the video, but both hands are here. And he legit just locked eyes with whoever it was and realized, oh no, I'm in for a bit of a headline here for the next week. But if it's part of his, what it's kind of made him successful during the year, you can't really knock it. It's if he likes to hang out with his friends, take his mind away from it, and have a pub meal, as you say, before a game, then credit to him and let him do it. So it's obviously working for him. But I got to shout out someone else first, Lloyd Meek. Oh, mate, this man is absolutely killing it at the moment. He is an incredible force. That is, I think, one of the reasons that Hawthorn team is being so successful. He's absolutely dominating in the middle there. And you got to give a man his flowers when it's well-deserved like that. So I got to give that shout-out, a little draw-by to Lloyd Meek, who's been absolutely killing it.
Do like the big boys out there. I do have to drag it back to Jack Ginnivan for one more because we don't mind the water at the London Tavern. What are our thoughts on texting your potential prelim opponents 2 weeks ahead of time saying, see you in 14 days on Instagram? Because that's what he's done. He's just bypassed Port Adelaide completely and sent a message straight to BG, Big Brody Grundy, and said, see you in 14 days. Now, is that putting the heat on yourself or onto your team? And are we laughing that one off?
That is peak confidence right there if I've ever heard it. Oh my gosh, that is gold. Now, he was good mates with Brody, obviously, playing with him and stuff like that. But to sit there and just look right past him, I guarantee you that will be up in Port Adelaide's meeting room just saying, this fella does not respect us. Let's absolutely take it to him. So, you give a little bit to the opposite cut. Sometimes it can be detrimental. Sometimes it's all duck, no dinner, as some people have said in the past. But it is an interesting thing to be able to put that publicly. You probably, as a coach, be saying, look, you can say those things, as a personal relationship with Brody, but don't put it out to the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's not as bad as saying the showgrounds comments 6 months ahead of time now. Anything that you say on international waters, I just want to put this out there to the public. Anything that Mason says can't be used against him in the court of law. He's on a boat in front of a hot tub, international waters. There's a Jiva convention or something. There's something that goes about that. Anyway, I don't know if you saw this, but the Battle of the Bridge finally lived up to the hype. I mean, they have, in fairness, had some pretty good close rivalries. But this game was, well, for starters, clearly the best game of the first week of finals. Because outside of this, they were all a bit shit, to be honest. But Sydney v GWS, GWS got the early jump on them and looked like they were gonna get it done. And then I don't know if you know this bloke, Isaac Heaney, 30 touches. Yep. I think he had 8 score involvements, 3 goals, and he took what would be mark of the year if it wasn't in finals.
He is an absolute freak. Like, looking back on that vision, and he kind of dragged him over the line. I felt like similar to whenever we played him. He stood up in those moments that mattered most, and that mark he took. Oh my gosh, dude! It was so loved it, absolutely loved it. But he's an absolute film. We looking at that game, you thought the whole way through, GWS surely finishes this out, and in that fourth quarter, they just came home strong. And it's pretty wild. I can only imagine what the crowd was doing there and how insane that atmosphere would have been, being a home game for Sydney, and that comeback and Lamarty kicking that last goal that just kind of dribbled through and just absolutely going nuts, man. It looked like an absolute vibe there. It looked sick. But yeah, it was credit to him. I know you big GBS man over there, Brayden, but your team didn't get across the line. Now they've got to go and face a Brisbane outfit that's beat Carlton over the weekend too. So it's going to be an interesting game there. But yeah, you still think GWS has what it takes. Definitely Sydney. There was question marks around them. Obviously, weren't as dominant the back half of the year as the first half of the year, but they proved their worth over the weekend, and now they get that week off that's so incredibly important during finals, and we'll see how they go.
Yeah, I definitely think out of GWS and Port, GWS is still very much a live chance to get across the other side of the fixture and get to a prelim. Yep. They did everything except for win the game, and as we saw in the Collingwood game, that Sydney only needs a quarter. They only need a quarter, if that. Half a quarter, they can chuck on 5 goals. They're still a scary proposition. I feel like that's the game they needed to show people that they can still really turn it on.
Yeah.
So that was a great game. One that wasn't. Brisbane v Carlton. Now, Carlton just didn't arrive at the ground. Well, they could have stayed on the bus for the first couple quarters because it took them till I think 3 minutes left in the second quarter to kick their first goal. Then they kicked a couple in a minute, which was pretty impressive. But they were 60-0 at one stage, which is just curtains. We've seen a lot of big comebacks. Unfortunately, they were nowhere near it. There was a couple of interesting moments out of this where Kennedy went up and he just had his partner just gave birth to their child, made the trip up to Brisbane and got subbed out halfway through the second quarter, and he was sitting in the back of the bench steaming, which is
as you would be.
It's probably fair because, it's pretty rough to make the trip up. But we did see Doherty return, Sam Doherty, and he did return with a goal. 16 touches, a goal. Nice little, moment for Carlton in a game that was, pretty dark for him.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was probably favoring Carlton to win that game. And whenever you looked down at the score and it was 60-0 is insane for a final. You think that, obviously being in top 8 teams, you'd be able to put a bit of scoreboard pressure on. But obviously Carlton had a few different people that were out and weren't playing, but it was one of those things that Brisbane just got off to such a hot start. It was never going to be a chance for them to really try to claw back, I feel like, in that moment, especially being away too at the Fortress. And it was a beautiful moment. I will say that Sam Doherty goal, I think that was kind of like the highlight for Carlton if you're a Carlton fan of a pretty bleak kind of day. But credit to him. He's a great man. I've always loved Sam, the way he's done it, what he's kind of done for testicular cancer and everything along those lines. Every time you see him out there and doing his thing, it's always a feel-good moment, right? It's always a feel-good moment for, like I said, which was not a great day to be a Carlton fan, but probably to be expected.
Yeah, so unfortunate for Carlton. I know you and I really feel for them in this moment, and thoughts and prayers go out to them and their fan base, because it's a hard time for them, isn't it? So that's unfortunate. Anyway, we do look ahead to next week. So we do have Port Adelaide v Hawthorn. I feel like it feels like you've already said the Hawks. I can't actually say it. Can I stick with Port? Come
on, bro, do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Well, yeah, for Kenny's sake, I'm sticking with Port, because if he loses, it's trouble.
Hey, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to stick with Port Adelaide. And worst case scenario, I'm saying worst case scenario, Kenny Hinkley loses and he goes to West Coast and then just rebuilds that program.
Yeah, don't mind it. Don't mind it. And hopefully he's just loved and cherished there the whole way through. What do we got? GWS.
Western Australia will love him.
Yeah, GWS, but no pressure in Perth, apparently. It's nice and cruisy. GWS v the Lions at NG Stadium.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. I think that's probably the one everyone's looking at as the big ticket game. That's a question mark, maybe more of a 50-50 than any of the other games. I have to go GWS on this one. They took Sydney to the line. Should they have won that game, they definitely had an opportunity to. But yeah, it's tough the way they've been playing throughout the whole year, really. I think it's hard to pick against them. Obviously, Brisbane had a bit of momentum winning their last game, but overall, I think a home game for them gives them a chance to go and play that winner of that Port Adelaide game and probably get back to that grand final spot. So I'm going to have to go GWS on this one.
Yeah, I'm backing in my boys, the GWS Giants, mighty Giants. I just think they're too good. Brisbane have obviously lifted in the second half of the season. I just don't know if they're as good as they are at the Gabba. Like, obviously they're not, but I just feel like Giants should get the job done at home. So, yeah, that's a massive week of footy. Hopefully next week's games are better than last week's games, and then so on and so forth. Hopefully we get a couple of good prelims. What about Geelong? We didn't really touch on Geelong's win, but that's very impressive to go over there, get the job done. Danger lifted massively because, I just thought they were going to tag Holmes, and then once you tag Holmes, it kind of gets a bit thin, but Holmes had 16 at half time. He was just toweling them up, setting up everything. Brian Myers, pretty much, it feels like every kick that he kicks is a goal assist. They just keep getting it done, the old Cats.
It's impressive. I think you talk about experience and how important that is coming towards finals. And I mean, they don't have Gary Rowan, who unfortunately broke his skull or fractured his skull over in the VFL. Tomahawk. There's a few guys that, they ended up still having out. And I think the leaders really kind of stood up in that game. And it is insane to look at that score line and go, that actually happened. I think everyone was so convinced it was going to be a close game or Port Adelaide was going to beat them. And Geelong just went over there and absolutely spanked them at their home ground, and no one saw it coming. So I think a lot of people probably looked past Geelong a little bit, and said, they're top four. They're probably the weakest out of the top four, all that kind of stuff. After that game, people are going, well, Geelong now might be, those teams that actually makes a flag.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. I don't think many people would have probably been saying that before the final series kind of started, but after that performance, you can't knock them.
No, yeah, and their run, as soon as they, now they're at the G, I assume, for the prelim, and then at the G again with a home run through to potentially another grand final where, they've over here they've been belting up how well Chris Scott has done, so he kind of deserves that, given he's been in something like 13 prelims since he's been at Geelong since 2011. Won a flag in his first year, won 2 since he's been there, runner-up in 1, heap of prelims. They just keep ticking it over. Anyway, I don't want to stray too far away from your holiday because I want to know about that. I want to live vicariously through you. And before we jumped into the footy, you said you had a little story, a little teaser.
Yeah, so as you know, I'm sailing Croatia at the moment right now, and I'm sitting there going, okay, perfect. I got to Croatia, got to Split, 8 days on a boat, I'm going, beautiful. I'm half a world away from Australia. No one will know anything about football. Be able to get on this boat, meet some people from all over the world, right? I get there, I'll put my bags on, I'll check in, I'll talk to the guy that's looking after the boat, and he goes, what's your name, where are you from? I said, I'm from Australia. He goes, oh, beautiful. Everyone else on this boat is from Australia. And I said, right. You got to be absolutely kidding me. There's about 28 people on this boat. All of them are from Australia. So the guy goes, oh, do you think anyone would know you? And I said, oh, depending on where they're from, Sydney or, up in Queensland, probably not, but maybe the other ones would probably have heard of something if they're an AFL fan. So I get onto this boat. As I walk up the stairs, this guy goes, oh, Coxie, you legend, mate. Oh, welcome to the boat. And I've traveled half a world away to get away from football. What have I done? I've landed on a boat with a bunch of football people. And there's these lovely people from WA. They're very, very nice. Few Collingwood fans, which is ironic, being half a world away. But they're absolute legends, the nicest people. And a bit of a story. The first night, one of the guys comes up to me and he goes, can you do me a favor? I said, yeah, what do you need? He goes, well, 6 of us played local, footy as kids, and I brought jerseys of our local football club. And I said, yeah, okay, that's kind of unique and interesting. He goes, will you do a jersey presentation on the boat for the first night? So not only have I rocked up to a boat full of Australians, I am doing a jersey presentation on the first night of this cruise, which is something I don't think I could have fathomed whenever I told myself I'm going on a Croatian tour on a cruise for a whole week. And it has been lovely. They've been amazing people, but it was hilarious. And they are enjoying a drink. They're all from WA. They're a hoot, as we would call them back in America. But you wouldn't believe it, Brayden. I've landed myself on a footy boat in the middle of Croatia, half a world away from where footy exists.
WA too. Out of everyone that it could have been.
Yeah, I didn't say it.
Oh, my God. But
we had the same idea.
That reminded me of, I think Pendle said that he went all the way to Greece once, and he went out onto his balcony just to set it up. I think it might have been way back in the day, like we're talking 2010, and he walked out there and someone was watching the replay of the grand final on a phone next door. You could hear it. You can't escape. Anyway, this is why I want to jump into some of these, because obviously we'll get more into the rest of your trip going on, but I want to just bring up some things that can happen, because sometimes you think, rational thoughts. I should be fine to do this and that. I should be fine to go on that elephant ride. I should be fine to, get in the jacuzzi on the roof. I should, you're doing a lot. You're not through Asia, but you're through Europe. The gondola ride. Just be careful. They can come out of anywhere, and I just want to give you some of the weirder and wackier ones. So obviously we'll start pretty light, and you probably know this one because it was well within your time. But Max King, in his second season, he was playing a round of golf and got hit by a stray golf ball. And now that concussed him, and he had to miss 2 weeks from concussion. So just when you're like, maybe we'll just go have a nice chill round of golf, your head on a swivel, Mace, because anything can happen.
Wear a helmet.
Now, good segue, Mace, because a former teammate of yours, Jaden Stevenson, loves a mountain bike ride. Now, he just finished his first season for the North Melbourne Footy Club back in 2021, having a couple of drinks at home. He said, look at me do a fancy trick on my mountain bike, and went tits up. and landed on a concrete paver, resulting in an ambulance ride to the hospital with a fractured hip. So have you got any mountain bike rides planned for the trip?
I am going to do a bike ride through a national park here in a couple of days. So I will take it on only paved roads. I will be very diligent in the way I go about it. I will make sure I don't do anything like you did whenever what'd you do? You ruptured your testicle, was it?
No, I don't. I just did some damage. It's all together. No ruptures. I didn't. I ruptured my what is it? My blood vessels or whatever.
Coccyx or something.
My big thing. And then, but I was being a silly goose. I tried to do a trick like Jaden Stevenson, and that's when your ability and your confidence don't align. That's when you get into trouble. So you're not as good as you think you are. Just pull it back a stretch. Yeah. Now, we know Jeremy Howe, right? Your teammate, very talented individual. And we'll take him on his word for this one because obviously he broke his finger with an incident with his dog and a Frisbee, and it definitely didn't happen in the T20 clash in Melbourne's eastern suburbs, where he also played a game, but that was just coincidence because it was a Frisbee and his dog. Now, I also stumbled across one where Jeremy got kicked out of the MCG for building a giant beer snake. So Jeremy likes to have a crack during the off season. So don't do what Howie does. I think that's a good motto.
Well, Howie also just released that he's having a second child, so I'll double down on that one and don't do that while you're over there.
Don't
do the beer snake thing.
Don't do that. There's plenty of avenues I can go down with that.
Congrats to him and his wife, but I'll try to stay away from it for the time being.
Congratulations, and as always, wear a helmet. You were talking about with the bike riding. Wear a helmet.
In both scenarios, wear a helmet.
Both scenarios, wear a helmet. Now, we all know this one, famous one. Cal Mills, WrestleMania comes early. Post-season celebrations. Bit of a wrestle. Dislocated the shoulder. Torn rotator cuff in the left shoulder. And was just... That kind of ruled out the start of his season. So named captain after that, which is great. I think maybe that was the final. Whoever won that wrestle got to be captain. But I don't know how you win with a torn rotator cuff. So when you're out there, no wrestling.
Okay.
That's a pretty simple one. I reckon you could probably stay away from that.
Yeah. That's good advice. Yeah, I'll try to stay away from it.
Wear a helmet.
Don't do any bar fights.
Wear a helmet.
Don't do anything with dogs is what I've learned over the off seasons, I think. Yeah. Dogs lead to broken hands.
Dogs are a big one. I don't even think you're pretty accident prone. You've had a lot of accidents over the time. I don't even think you could break your hand with a Frisbee, but Jeremy Howe did it. Anyway, we'll get off chess. Stevie J, Christmas drinks disaster. Now, this is a pretty famous one. 3-time premiership, a Norm Smith medal, successful assistant coach. But way back, December 2003, Stevie J decided to jump the fence of a Torquay hotel to get back into the venue in the early hours. So already right there, right? You get kicked out, probably a good sign to stay out. You're done. You're donezo. Yep. What you're not doing is climbing a fence, scale a fence, and try to jump back into the venue and shatter both heels in the process. So I feel that's a pretty fair one. Now, we can all dabble in a bit of the alcohol from time to time, especially the athletes in the off season. And I know that you don't drink a lot during the season, so it can go straight to your head. So maybe just, if you get kicked out, stay out.
It reminds me of one of my favorite stories of whenever I first came to Australia, and Jack Rewald, who was obviously playing at Richmond at the time. One of my first impressions of the Richmond Football Club was the media was outside because he had said something about Dimma, and the media cameras were all over the place. I'm upstairs doing a psychology assessment, and all of a sudden I see this human in a dead sprint across Richmond's field, hops a fence, gets over to the train station, and I'm sitting there looking at these reporters chasing them, and I'm going, who is that? And the guy kind of like embarrassingly says, yeah, he's kind of one of our best players. he's running away from the media, decided to take the train home for the day. I was like, wow, this AFL thing is a real just anything goes, isn't it?
That was I was actually there for that one. So it was interesting. The run to the train station, chasing after Jack, he smartened up since then. He matured up. So that was good to see. We can, not that he was a mistake, but we do learn from these things and we do grow as people. Now, there was a famous one. This is probably more when you get back, but I never know what they do on these Kentucky tours. These Kentucky tours, not that you're on one of those, but they make you do all kinds of dumb bonding shit over there. And one of them, if they say, Mace, we can motivate you to endure any type of pain because we can get you so in the zone, you can just switch your mind off. And that's what they did, Nigel Smart in Adelaide, where a bunch of Adelaide players for the preseason were convinced to walk over boiling hot coals. And they all kind of melted to their feet, and then they all got pretty severe burns. So that's something that I wouldn't suggest you do. Now,
Adelaide Football Club, not great history.
Not great at the preseason camp.
Programs.
That's
preseason camps.
That's very safe to say. Have you ever got talked into doing some dumb bonding shit on any of these trips you've been on? I know a lot of people. We did you take the shot without using your mouth, and then you spit out the shot, and then you got to kiss the person next to you.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I haven't done that one, Brayden.
No.
I wouldn't mind it, but
You're leaking.
your tongue is leaking right now. Oh my gosh!
For those listening to the audio-only version, that's the jacuzzi. That's not Mason just pissing himself.
Jumping into the pod.
Yeah.
That's so good. No, I haven't done any of those bonding yet. I think I've jumped off a few cliffs and stuff over my times just to kind of, be part of the group, but I don't think I'll be doing that this offseason. I think the group I'm with right now, I've been told that the average age for this cruise is 45 plus. So I don't think that's probably along the lines of what a lot of people on here are expecting. And I'm actually okay with it. I'm here just to have a good, relaxing time, and I don't need to be doing shots and kissing people to the left and right of me like you, Brayden. That's just not my future.
You got to get over there. You got to experiment. Whoever's next year, just have a crack. I do want to get to this one because it's very interesting. Backyard Blitz leaves Brad Ottens stuck. A bit of a backyard DIY went horribly wrong for the Richmond ruck forward after the 2002 season. The number 2 draft pick from 1997 fell from a tree while trying to hang an outdoor swinging chair and landed on what he described as a broomstick-sized garden stake, which got stuck in his thigh.
Yikes. That's, that just sounds rough. And then also kind of explaining that story to the club, I would have loved to have just been on that phone call, just trying to explain what the hell just happened. And you have to believe him because it's such a detailed event. Like, you can't sit there and say that's a wild story just to make up to say that's not even true. So credit to him, I guess, but I don't know. I almost would probably make up a fake story to be able to cover for that one.
It's an innocent thing, like a hanging rope swing from a tree. So I get where they're coming from. A couple of these are very creative. Now we got the frisbee, we got the rope swing. Now what about another? There's a lot of Collingwood he's not a former teammate, but former Collingwood player, Sharad Wellingham's trampoline shocker. Now isn't that a headline? West Coast gave up a first-round pick for Sharad Wellingham at the end of 2012, but the former Magpie took longer than expected to debut for his new club after suffering ankle syndesmosis late in preseason in 2013. Wellingham thought he broke his leg after falling from a trampoline.
Trampolines are never ideal, that's for sure. And I think I've done a bounce. I've been to a bouncy castle kind of thing for adults, the bounce thing. I remember Jordan my knee in one of those, and that cost me a month or two of preseason. So I think just staying away from trampolines in general is probably the go, I would say. Brad, he's
he was one of the first people I think I'd seen actually play football. So it's interesting to know a bit of backstory of all the hockey now. Know exactly, I guess, how much risk he's willing to take in the offseason. But stay away from trampolines in general, I think, is the consensus as an adult. As a kid, go ahead. As an adult, no.
Yeah, I think tall people in general. Yeah, tall people, trampolines don't go hand in hand. That's for damn sure. Now, I do want to give an honourable mention to Brian Lake, who spent a week in a Japanese jail cell. He went over to play a nice innocent game for the AFL Asia tournament, but he had an altercation with a local man. So stay out of jail. Japanese people, they don't stuff around, so don't mess with that. Lucky you're not going through Japan.
Make sure everyone stays out of the Bali jail is the biggest thing, I think. But we'll wrap it up. Give us one more. We'll wrap it up, Brayden.
The Western Bulldogs' first pick in the 2007 AFL draft was stung on the back of a leg by a stingray during a recovery session at a beach in February 2008. Now, that's very rough, especially because he grew up playing for the Dandenong Stingrays. They think they would have had one of their own in the back of their mind, but just be very careful over there. This is the last thing I will say. Don't go messing with any stingrays, any creatures in the water. I reckon maybe just stay out of the water. No sharks. We're wearing a helmet in the bike department. Are you rock climbing, mountain climbing? Are we doing you snorkeling? Because we already said stay out of the water. Are we doing anything? Tell us what the rest of your trip is from here on out. And we can just give it a bit of a grading on where you should be careful and how you should be able to get through this. We got to navigate your way through this, mate.
We've got another boat for 5-6 days, Lake Como after that, and then we're going to hike through the Dolomites, so I will wear that helmet then. And then we'll spend a month in Austin, and that's full of ACL, which is a festival, music festival, and then we'll do the USAFL, do some stuff over there with AFL, which will be good fun. And then the rest of it's a bit up for debate. So I will keep the helmet in mind whenever doing biking or whatever, kind of be able to use that, I guess. But the biggest thing, I'll try to stay away from the stingrays. Don't like the Steve Irwin stuff. That scares the hell out of me. I did get bit by a crab while I was in Torquay recently, and that scared the absolute bejesus out of me. So I'll try to stay away from those the sea creatures. I think is probably a good advice for the off-season.
I like that. I did hear a lot of don't get crabs, don't fall off a mountain. Don't just Texas in general. A lot of guns, heap of guns. So just protect yourself there. I don't know about going to music festivals or anything like that. We did hear about your shenanigans last time with your brother. So maybe we skip. Let's just bubble wrap it up. But it is good to see that you're currently still alive. It looks like it's getting a little windy on top of the boat there.
It is.
Which I'm glad. I feel like that's coming from Melbourne. It's coming across the line. So, I don't know. We're going to have to wrap it up there. But it is good to see you. It's good to hear from you. Any words for our loving fans before you head off?
Massive thank you for the year, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. We might release a few episodes of some, as I'm in a hurricane here, we might release a few episodes of some of our favorite kind of interviews we've done over the next few weeks. But massive thank you as always from the community. Hopefully you're surviving down there in Melbourne, down in the Windy City. But massive thank you to everyone. And I'm going to go enjoy my holidays for the last little bit. And can't wait for next year. It's going to be good fun.
Too easy. We'll see you when you get back.
Thanks, Legend. We'll catch you later, bro.